PGA Nation, we are back and we are officially on the Florida swing. Some good weather. I mean, at least here in the East Coast, we need it. I am excited, but we also have a JV field, and it's been a minute. We got some good tournaments, some fuller fields. So this week, it is definitely going to be a watered down field. It just makes for a much different tournament, much different building, which is lineup construction, which is all I think could be good. I mean, if you're doing the research and watching shows like ours, I think there's an edge to be had when you go to some of these watered down tournaments. I like this week. I like PGA National. But of course, when we get a fun tournament like this one, we like to bring in one of our favorite guests, Joe Nicely, who I will add is the only person on record to actually come on as a guest and win on this show. Joe, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, boys. Doing good. Thanks for having me on. It's good to be with you. Excited to get the Florida swing underway. We got some really cool tournaments coming up. This one, not the best, but hey, there's still money out there to be made. I agree with you, Joel. I think if you really dig in, lean in this week, you can find some edges in this type of event. So looking forward to it and always happy to be with you guys.
Ooh, I love it. Spence, coming up on a big vote tomorrow. I know you're not having too much optimism behind it, but regardless of that, Spence, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Joel. I think the thing that I would rather touch on this show is I don't understand how you beat me by 1 point when Cantlay went in the negative direction with it, but it is what it is. We will do the punishment wheel. It is the same stuff. I have not gotten rid of anything. I don't think it would be fair to, the funny thing about it is I was actually going to make this hypothetical wheel and hope that nobody caught on and just put the most positive returns that I could possibly get on it to where I get to make the first 6 picks in the draft. I get to do this. And I figured that's probably not the right time to do it the very first time that I've lost. So we will have a legitimate wheel. We will see what my punishment is and we will go from there.
Yes. Spencer is getting punished. But before we even bury Spencer on the punishment wheel, congratulations are in order to Team Audience, which is now on a historical run this season. You guys have been red hot. Start off the year. Did they win the first 2 or 3 of the season? Spence, do you know?
Did
they get the 3-peat early in the season when they started? All I know is the Audience has definitely won the most drafts this year. Audience has been red hot. And they have another golden opportunity tonight, but that's why we brought in Joe Nicely, because we can't have the Audience win again. We know Joe is a guest that can win this draft. So stakes are high for the Cognizant Classic King of the Draft. We're going to have some fun. But what I find interesting, there's been a lot of chatter this week. And if you've heard, guys like Billy Horschel talk about the course and how it's playing much easier now than it has in years past. I'd love to get your guys' take on the course setup, the historical bear trap, PGA National, how it's become almost like a secondary event. Like guys used to show up to play this event. Now they're kind of taking this week off. It's playing much easier. Do you like that or dislike it for this event? We'll start with you, Joe.
I think it's just part of what we're going to see, like as the PGA Tour schedule continues to evolve. I mean, we're a year or 2 away, but I think they're definitely moving towards, I guess, what I'd call a scarcity model, where we're going to see these bigger, more important events, but we're also going to kind of see these lesser events. There's almost going to be, in my opinion, 2 PGA Tours in the future, where you kind of got the superstars and then you've kind of got the rank and file guys that still need a place to play, still need a tour to play on. And that's definitely what this event kind of has trended towards in the past few years. But yeah, you're right, Joel. This used to be an awesome event. PGA National was one of, if not the toughest golf courses like on the regular schedule. And that's definitely changed as distance has become more prominent. We see these guys getting longer off the tee. They've changed some course setup things. A lot of overseed grass now, which just makes chipping much, much easier around these greens. And we've seen the rough be down. We might see it up a little bit this year. I kind of hearing mixed things on that. But, yeah, I definitely miss the old school hardcore PGA National days.
I would agree. And, I'm not losing hope that doesn't come back. when they do make some changes. Because really what the issue is, it's just timing. It's they're coming back from California and these guys just need a week off. And I think if they move this to next week or 2 weeks from now, I think guys would show up and play again. And it's something they just kind of think through on the schedule where they want to get some of the big dogs. But I think you're to the point you made, Joe. I think it's time, right? It's kind of awkward that the players just kind of choose when they're going to play in some of these tournaments, and this one just be the one they all take off. I think it makes sense to have it more structured, where it's like, hey, these are the ones, if they're the big boys to go play, and these are kind of like the weeks to take off, and have it be more organized that way versus just the guys decide when they're going to show up or not.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a pretty big schedule shakeup. I honestly don't know how much the Florida swing is going to change, but I think we're going to probably see Riv and probably Pebble at the end of the season. I think those are probably going to be playoff events. I think those golf courses will both show up better at that time of year. We saw like a really, really wet Riviera last week. That golf course is amazing, and we didn't really get to see it, how awesome it is. So I think there's going to be some big changes. But yeah, man, I mean, I get it for these guys. You're coming off Pebble, you're coming off Rib. We had Phoenix a few weeks back, then you're going cross country, and you've got Arnold Palmer, the Players. You've got all these big events, so it's just kind of a natural point to take a week off for most of these guys.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. Audience, before we move on, you guys did win, so feel free. The first person to drop a order in the chat that will be the order we'll go with tonight. So anybody drop in an order, team audience. We do prefer you guys to go first or last. It's easier to keep the draft moving. So the first order dropped in the chat with the audience going first or last will be the order that we will go with for today. And then we'll get into the draft shortly. Spencer, before we move on, I'd love to get your take. Is there anything you're looking for on the course this week at PGA National?
Well, let me ask you this, because in my opinion, if you're not going to have the big boys that show up to this event, and that's typically like this venue being as hard as it is one of the reasons why, like, forget the schedule for a second, why a lot of names don't want to show up for it. And now all of a sudden you sandwich it in between a bunch of signature events, and you're going to get everybody to either not enter to begin with, or you're going to get the Ben Griffins or Jacob Bridgmans to pull out of this event. Don't you think that if we're just looking from an identity standpoint, if you're trying to keep this to be must-watch television, wouldn't you want carnage if you're the PGA Tour? Wouldn't you want to challenge these guys and tell them, like, look, we know we're not getting the big names to begin with. Let's just get the names that we get, and let's have this be mayhem out there. Like, I don't understand the ease that we have done across the board at all these courses. I'm a big believer when it comes to, like, I give this answer as more of a sports betting outlook than anything. I bet a bunch of matchups. I'm always trying to find miscut equity. I'm always trying to find value in those plays, and people are going to miss the cut this week. I understand that that's part of the case, but when you simplify a course, you kind of remove some of that volatility that water usually brings into the mix. And it doesn't mean, by the way, there's 15 holes with water. There's 26 individual water hazards. A lot of those are going to come into play on your second shot. Like, those approach play metrics are still going to be important, and people are going to implode. You will look on the leaderboard on Thursday, and there will be some names that have found the water over and over again and have taken themselves out of the tournament. But I don't know. I don't have a problem with what the field actually looks like. Like, to me, this is a better tournament to play DFS on, specifically when you add water to the mix. I just have more of a problem with the ease that we keep putting, not just at PGA National, but on pretty much any course that we can find on tour at this point.
Well, that was going to be my question to you. I was going to say, PGA National or not, at any course or any tournament setup, don't you always prefer carnage? Like, what course organizer is like, let me make this really easy for these guys. I want the winner to be 40 under. Like, they always should be making the course as difficult as again, especially in 2026 when you got guys who are on tour that can drive the ball 320 yards and they're not even good. They're on the bottom of the tour list and they can hit the ball 320 yards. So, if these guys can hit it that long, then you have to kind of do something. Otherwise, you're right. I mean, it gets silly because it was a couple weeks ago when the course was playing easy, and it was so hard. I thought from a DFS perspective because anybody could have gone 6 under on that day. So it's like, how do you pick when some no-name guy can go 6 under on the course. It's just like pick a name out of a hat at that point, right?
That's what it feels like to me, and it's really difficult. I still like the in-tournament aspect of it, at least as far as like maybe showdown goes. You can still find some edges, but you said it best, Joel. It's a bunch of golfers that on any given day have the ability to go 63, and then the water is going to add some of that volatility back to the mix. But if the holes are naturally easier, and we like anybody who thought this was going to remain difficult, when you change the most difficult or one of the most difficult holes on the course, that par 4 10th, and you turn it into a par 5 location, you're now all of a sudden taking a scoring average that's 4 point whatever, like on like the lower end of that mark there, and you're turning this into a very similar return with it now just being a par 5. And when a hole is playing over par versus a hole playing nearly a stroke under par, you're going to go from a single digit sort of a tournament to now all of a sudden you're 17, 18, 19. Like that can be enough to flip it over 4 days of the difference of 6-7 shots just at one hole.
It's a good point. Yeah. I mean, Eddie, you even saw that, I thought it was interesting even last week when it was like, and it was a par 5, but still the first hole, it was like, if you didn't birdie at least hole 1, you're off to a bad start because it was a reachable par 5. And it's like the expectation, even if par 5s, even with professionals in par 5s, when the expectation is that you should be birdieing the hole as almost the par, it's like, okay, is it too easy? And I get some par 5s, that's just how it is. But that's why I think major golf is so much more exciting. It's because anything can happen out there. I mean, you get in the rough, you can't get out in some of these courses. So, so we have our work cut out for us this week at PGA Nationals. We have a fun draft. Audience, you'll be drafting first. Courtney, I assume you'll be stepping up as team audience's captain. The order will be, to begin it up, it's going to be audience, Spencer, Joe, and then myself. And Spencer is going to spin the punishment wheel. So a couple of things here. Before we spin the wheel, one, audience, you're on the clock. So if you want to start getting nominations in now, you can. As a quick reminder, the way this works is we're going to do a snake draft. Works like your typical fantasy football draft, 1 through 4. Audience, Spencer, Joe, and then myself. I'll have 2 on the snake, and then we'll go back. The big caveat here is you do need to actually be able to afford your lineup. So you can't just draft any golfer. You need to make sure you can actually play your lineup on DraftKings. With that being said, Spencer lost last week, so Spencer's going to be spinning the wheel and getting a punishment that we will incorporate into the draft tonight. So if you're new, make sure you're on YouTube. That's where you can get into the chat and actually draft along. So when team audience is up, anybody who is watching or wants to participate can nominate a golfer like Andrew just did, Nikolai Højgaard. As soon as someone mentions the golfer twice, that is your pick. So if a guy gets doubled, that pick gets locked in. Højgaard's locked in for team audience right now. And then we will draft the rest of the picks in the similar format. All right, Spence, is there a punishment that you're hoping to land on?
I mean, I'd like to get reverse Uno. We've never really talked a bunch about it, but it would get me out of this week or give me the ability to kind of put one of those punishments on somebody. Be honest with you, I used to have a little notepad next to myself that told exactly what these are. And maybe this is just me, the one that's getting punished right now, that I just like very casually forget what these punishments are. But we might have to go back and figure out what exactly some of these were. These titles got a little bit too clever at this point. I think 8K or less means every player I take has to be 8K or less. The reverse Uno gets me out of having to do this. Fiduciary curse would be, I believe that's I give 3 picks and the audience gives me one of those selections. The Steal My Sunshine one was pretty bad. That one is everybody gets an ability throughout this draft to steal a pick from me. So people can just jump in and out of turns. I don't think that one would be particularly great. Pick after the draft. I know, Joel, we had said we weren't going to include that one. I think it's only fair that I also have the ability to just have to sit out the draft after you did it the first time. The alphabet song, I think that is all players had to be drafted between M and Z in the alphabet of their last name. That feels really terrible. Randomize is a randomize from within my model. The way that I feel like I'm running right now, I might get 100th on this, and it's not going to be a good name to start this. And then Globetrotter was the one from Ian that everybody has to be from a different country. that gets picked. I mean, I think I could work around that one. I'm going to have to be looking up and Google searching some of these players to make sure where they're exactly from. But I'll ask you this before I spin the wheel. I'll ask it to both of you guys. Do you think there is one that is worse than the rest of them?
There's definitely layers to this. I'm not sure if there's one that I would highlight as the very worst, but there's definitely a couple that I would rather have than not.
I would agree. I mean, I think the alphabet song, the randomize, the steal my sunshine, the fiduciary curse, I think those are the 4 worst ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime somebody can steal your pick, it's like,
yeah,
no bueno, man.
Yeah, everybody has the ability to steal it. So I will spin the wheel right now. We will see where this lands. We will figure out what this is. I think I don't want randomized because I don't really want to randomize the 100th player. I assume that's where this is going to land. But I will hit this in 3. 3, 2, 1. And there you go, just like I said. I mean, that's about the most foregone conclusion outcome that this could possibly be at this point.
Literally, it's just anything but randomized. Immediately random.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is how you know the show is not rigged of what the outcome is on it. We'll talk about Nikolai Højgaard. I'm going to set up this randomization. We will go back to my model to have that discussion. I'm going to stop the share here. But Joe, any thoughts on the Nikolai Højgaard first pick?
Yeah, I love Nikolai this week. He would probably been my number 1 pick as well. Just like the way he's trending. T18 here last year, playing really good golf, and in this field, you know, you got a couple guys. I mean, it's really, really weird, guys. With these WDs after pricing came out, we don't have a player above 10K. So I can't remember the last time I've seen a board like this. But if you're looking at the 9s, which obviously it's where most people are going to start this week, Nikolai Højgaard's probably my favorite pick there.
Boom. I mean, listen, there's a lot to like about Nikolai. You know, there's clearly to me a top 3 or 4 that you want in this pool, and you know he's certainly square in that 3 or 4. I guess my question is, before we move off this pick, how close do you have his brother in your rankings to him?
I have them. I'll answer it first. I have Nikolai 2nd. I have Rasmus 15th.
So it's a pretty big gap. And it's interesting because some places actually have Rasmus ahead of Nikolai. At least it started that way. I think as the week has gone on, it looks like Nikolai has taken some bets. But I think when the odds first came out, I think Rasmus had better odds than Nikolai did. So,
and Rasmus is $100 higher on DraftKings.
Yeah,
which is kind of crazy to me.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I think Rasmus traditionally, like long term, was looked at as the better brother, but I think in the short term, Nikolai has just been in the last few months has been playing great, and so he's getting the short term form here over his brother. All right, who's up? Spence, you got the 2nd pick, so show us how are you going to do the randomize.
So I don't know if this is going to show on the screen or not. Does that bring up? Oh, it's in the middle of. Does that show the power tools thing that I just brought up?
I can see. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, you can see some form of it. The reason why I also think, by the way, that this is the worst pick is because this is not only. I forfeit my first pick entirely in this draft. Like it's not like I make this terrible pick of whatever it randomizes for me, and then all of a sudden I get a chance to pick again. So like there's that unfortunate truth of this that like whatever this ends up being is it's just gonna be, and then I don't get to pick again for a second. But the top box here, the one that's named the one that's next to Shane Lowry.
Ben, I changed the screen so you could show your whole model. So we need to reshare it to the new screen.
Okay. Okay.
There we go. Okay, now we can all see it.
Okay, so the randomized box that is to the right of Shane Lowry, it is going to randomize a number in there. So I'm going to go to the random generator. I'm going to do can't do 0. I'm going to do between 1 and 100. I'm going to hit generate, and it's going to give me a number in there. and that will be my pick. So I will do that right now. I'll count it
Wait,
down.
why is 100 what you're going to? Why not go to 100 and how many people are in the field?
Well, I gave you the same thing, Joel. If you really want to make this brutal, we can make this.
Okay, deal. Okay, I accept.
I mean, like, this is already going to be punishing enough as it is. I will hit this. Hopefully, I draw Shane Lowry. We'll see if I can get some good luck from this on this one. But all right, 3, 2, 1. It's processing it. It's taking forever to figure out who it wants to give.
Thinking about how badly it wants to win.
62nd.
Okay, what do we got?
Brooks Koepka. I guess it could be worse than that.
That's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Why is Brooks Koepka so low on your model?
I mean, I don't know that Brooks is a good or a not good pick, but I have no data from Brooks Koepka at this point. There's like 2 tournaments it's pulled from him, and it's pulling at the bottom of the end of it. And I don't have anything from him within the last couple years other than the major championships on it. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't like the pick. I mean, obviously my model has him really low. I still think that this is an implosion waiting to happen, but there's a lot worse that could have come than that.
What I'm intrigued by with Koepka this week, I think Koepka this week to me is really a ownership play. I want to see what the ownership comes to. If he ends up being like 10% or lower, I'm going to like him a lot because there's a very few guys with the upside Koepka guys. We know ball striking, he can be head and shoulders ahead of the field, and right now he's got to make some putts, which he hasn't done. But maybe a trip to Florida will help him. See some different greens and see some putts fall. But in terms of upside, and everyone looking to play the Højgaards and Lowry, Koepka could get overlooked a little bit. And if that happens, then I'm interested. But if the ownership ends up being closer to 15 plus, then I'm probably won't be interested for me personally. But we'd love to hear from you, Spence. I mean, you ended up getting him. You didn't pick him. So will you play him at all on your own this week?
I mean, I see 13.5% right now. I think that's a terrible ownership percentage. I understand that there's nobody over $10,000 on this board. Yeah, I mean, like this is. I mean, it's only for the first pick, by the way. It's the punishment is done there. Lowry was my number 1 player. I wish it would have been him. I wish I could swap it, but I don't like the ownership percentage for Koepka. I think that there's a lot of volatility for a golfer that's going to be between 10 to 15%. Like I was saying, you could make the argument that because nobody's over 10,000, that it like adds an ability for him to be playable. But I think the opposite has happened, that now people are going to him because it's so easy to kind of put him into a build. I wrote on Rotoballer this week, like I think it was my premium article that I released. Like Koepka's one of my least favorite plays on the entire board. So, it is what it is with this pick. But like I said, it could have been a lot worse. Like I'm sure there's some fringe guy that's $7,000 that I don't want at all. At least.
Did you say Koepka's one of your least favorite plays on the entire board?
For the price and the ownership, I think when obviously he's middle of the pack for me, like at least from where I have him. And we can argue that some of those stats are a little bit in the wrong direction, I guess, because of the limited sample size. But he is the 8th person in DraftKings price. He is the 10th person in ownership rank. I can get him as high as the 51st ranked player in my model. So it's kind of that like boom or bust that you talked about, to where the upside's better than the safety. If this was like a 2% owned play, I would feel a lot better. I feel a lot worse about all of the pieces when you put them together, when you have bad ownership, high price tag. At least for me on this, it's going to be very easy to make a build because I can't really go up to the top and want to take Scotty to begin with. The highest is Shane Lowry. And I mean, in reality, I compare Koepka with anybody I want in this tournament.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think that's a point well taken. So, all right, well, Brooks Koepka's off the board, Joe. You're up with your first pick. Where are you going?
I guess I'll just make the straightforward pick here and take Shane Lowry. Seen him play really, really well at this golf course. His record here is pretty unassailable. I think he's got 4 straight finishes of T11 or better at PGA National. Had a really good chance to win this event a couple years ago. Sepp Straka kind of stole it from him coming down the stretch. But we've seen Shane play really well in the fall swing. Didn't have a great 2025, but kind of put things together at the end of the calendar year internationally, and we've seen him start out solid this year. So, I mean, I think he's playing this tournament because he really believes he can win it. So, on a week and a salary scale with not a lot of sure things, Lowry's probably as close as we're going to find to a sure thing. So I'll just go ahead and lock him in with my first pick.
I would agree. I mean, ownership and everything else aside, Lowry seems like the most obvious play this week. You know, the guy you want on your team. I think the question becomes, because he seems so obvious, will it go over correct itself in the opposite direction? Where is Lowry going to come in? Shane Lowry like 35% owned. In that case, maybe I want to pivot, even though I probably still won't have zero because it's such a weak field. It's hard for me to imagine him not getting at least a top 10 out of this. So I'll go to you, Spence. What kind of ownership are you seeing on Lowry?
About 25%.
Ty still would probably play him at that though, but it's high.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just very quickly, like I might be a little bit too low. By the way, like I'd like to see where these come in because my initial pull that I had the Bridgmans, the Griffins, the Adam Scotts, which they have now been taken out of my model, but there was still that first 3-4 hour return where all of those guys were pulling a lot of these other names further. And now you're seeing this ascension that's happening in my model for ownership where the big three in price, I think it's the big three in price, but like the Gerard, Lowry, Højgaard, if they are the three most expensive, those are the three names that are just over and over and over again, getting all the playability that everybody's jumping up there to start their lineup. So
those are definitely the three hot spots this week, Spencer. I think Gerard, I mean, don't want to talk about these guys before they're gone, but we know Gerard's probably not going to last very long. But with Højgaard and Lowry already gone and Gerard probably going soon, those are going to be the three hot spots this week. I think with no 10K players, with the consistency that those three have shown, we're going to see ownership on those guys very high. And it's really kind of an interesting week to I mean, with this weak field and with this golf course, the water that we're seeing, there's so much volatility this week. So I almost kind of want to embrace that volatility and roster construction. It would be a really cool angle to take to just start the 8Ks this week with your lineups.
Yeah.
Boom. All right. Well, for me, I mean, I bury the lead here. Gerard, I'm taking first. Like I said on the first pick, there's really a big three, I feel like, that people are gravitating toward. So I was definitely going to snatch up one if it got to me. Lucky enough, Spencer didn't have a choice. So I got one of the big three here with my first pick. Gerard's the one that's come up a lot this year. His ball striking has been spectacular. He should be a course fit. And to add to the good form that he's bringing, he also has a really good course history here. I mean, he's giving you a top 5 and a top 25 playing here. So there's a lot to like. And like the biggest concern with all of these guys at the top now is these guys are elite for this tournament. They're not elite for overall golf. Are they almost overcorrecting where they're going to be highly owned because there's like an obvious 3 guys? And so kind of have the same concerns with all of them, that they're going to be overowned because they're clearly the top 3 in this tournament. But by no means are all 3 of these guys a lock to top 10. I mean, anything can happen in a volatile golf tournament. So, so if you're playing GPPs, I can understand the pivot there. But for the purpose of our draft tonight, I like Gerard. I'm lucky he got to me here at 4. And then with my second pick, I was torn between 2. I'm not going to say who the other one is because I guess there's a chance he gets back to me. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to take the other Højgaard brother. I'll take Rasmus here. In terms of elite talent, if I had the choice, I would have taken Nikolai first. But if you just look at it, Rasmus hasn't played this tournament, so we don't have, of course, history. But in terms of his recent form, I mean, a lot of, I guess I want to say above average results, like top 30s, 20s. He's playing good golf. But most of those fields are stronger than this one. So you take away all those big dogs where now he's a premier talent. Those top 25s, top 30s would become top 15s here. I think he's just a lot better than most of the other guys in this field. And for the same reasons why everyone likes Nikolai, maybe he's not as quite a good a form. He's not far behind. So I think the upside's there. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up having the better week than his brother, because what's the most common thing everyone says about the Højgaard brothers? I always pick the wrong one. The week everyone's on Nikolai, the other one does well, and vice versa. So hopefully I get that luck on my side with this pick. Joe, I'd love to go to you. Will Rasmus be in your player pool this week as well?
Yeah, for sure. With the kind of the lack of depth in this field, I think Rasmus is for sure in my player pool. And we're talking about a guy that, I think maybe you said it earlier, Joel, but this is kind of the brother, a few years ago that everybody thought was going to be the mega talent of the two. We've just seen Nikolai play really well lately, but Rasmus had an excellent fall. Several like top 3 finishes, couple of runner-ups there in international play. He had a really good finish at the Sanderson. And he's played solid golf, to this point this year. So I really like him, and he's just slightly below Nikolai for me this week.
Oh, I love it. Well, you got Lowry. Where are you going to go with your second pick?
I think we talked about it's just kind of a crazy week, and I just want to go with like a dude that I've always been a believer in, and I just think the talent's still there. So I'm going to take Will Zalatoris at 8,400. I've been a Willie Z truther kind of since the beginning. This is a guy that we know is a major championship type player when he's healthy and right. We've seen kind of some mixed results from him this year. He's only made a couple starts, but we saw some nice things at Amex, which I believe is going to play closer to this golf course than like Torrey. So we saw a 65 and a 64 from him that week. So I think, he's working his way back. Obviously not where we want him to be, or he'd be higher price, but I'm willing to take a gamble in this type of event on just the pure talent there.
Yeah, I think Zalatoris this week is really interesting, especially, the fact that it's this watered down event. His ball striking should, I think, be highlighted even more so. I think my only concern with Zalatoris is if he can string together 4 days, and because I think for a 1 or 2 rounds, I think he will have a good result. I'm pretty confident in that. But I think we haven't seen him put together a full tournament in a while, and that's what we got to see. Because once he starts doing that, right, he's then he's back, and hopefully we do see Will Zalatoris back to the form where he was top 10ing majors, on the red.
Yeah, I think at some point you kind of have to bet on the come a little bit, and because if he is back, then he's probably not playing this tournament one, but he's he's above 10K if he's in full Willie Z form. So I think you're kind of taking a little bit of a gamble there, and just hoping that as this Florida swing progresses. I mean, we know he's kind of eyeing bigger things down the road and trying to stay healthy, but you hope to see some positive signs, and as you mentioned, I think his ball striking is going to translate really well here.
Yeah, bet on the talent. I like it. 8,400 in this field. I think it's an interesting pick there. Spence, you can finally take your own pick, but we'd love to get your take on Willie Z this week.
If you look at some of the sharper markets, I know like Andy and I talked about this a little bit last week, when if you go to a site like Bookmaker, you can kind of see where the sharp and the square money is coming in. Zalatoris looks pretty sharp this week. And like, even if you just compare him directly to a name like Brooks Koepka, that's an actual Bookmaker matchup that's out there. I think Zalatoris is minus, don't quote me on this, 154, minus 155, somewhere in that range against Koepka. And I mean, I think a lot of those reasons from a mathematical perspective, like if you look at this board, Joel, it's kind of funny because you are correct. It's like Højgaard, Lowry, Gerard. That's the 3 that everybody's taking. And then if you're just tuning in, you don't know why I have Brooks Koepka on my team. You probably think I'm related to Brooks Koepka at this point, like why this name has just been thrusted into.
Hey, it could have been much worse with number 62, Spence.
I mean, in theory, yes, I guess. I mean, like, I just want a made cut out of Koepka this week. There are some really bad names around him. Like, I don't know if anybody saw my model at that point. There's like a Garrick Higo, which I understand he's been good on Bermuda, but like, I don't really want Higo this week. There was a Max Homa, which, I mean, I guess if you think Homa's back, then maybe that's okay. But this whole section in that 60-something range seemed to be a lot of names that people want to play that I seem to want to have nothing to do with this week. But yeah, I mean, in theory, It's better than going to the very bottom of the board and getting a $6,000 golfer, specifically for a tournament where there's no 10,000 to be able to stack the top of the board. But you are correct, Joel. I am now able to at least make my own pick here. And I'm going to go in the middle of the price tag here at 8,200. I'm going to take Max McGreevy here. My model really likes Max McGreevy and his profile. And, there are certain players that don't necessarily usually grade well for me. And when they do, it means something inside of my math. And we see that fourth place from McGreevy last season. And I understand he had the miscut at the Genesis, which I don't think necessarily was the best course for him, but a lot of solid results before that. He had the second and the third at the RSM in the Bermuda to end 2025. And then from a statistical perspective, he's 8th in my model at weighted comp courses. He's 3rd in my model on strokes gained total on Bermuda. He's 6th in this category where I looked at water and then bogey avoidance. So it's players that play better in these conditions. And Zalatoris was one of the big climbers in that area also, which is why I think Zalatoris is probably a really good play because of his ball striking here. But I like Max McGreevy. There's one other time that I can recall in history that McGreevy popped in my model like this, and that was at, I believe, the Players' Championship. And that was a tournament where McGreevy was near the top of the leaderboard through 2 days. So I like that there's been past returns from him where this actually makes sense, where he does pop for me. So I think he's a great play. I see 15% ownership. I know that might seem high, but honestly, for the way that this board is going to shake out with nobody being over 10, I think all of those guys in the 9s and the 8s are going to be a little bit higher than anticipated. I'm cool here taking McGreevy at 15% ownership.
McGreevy, I like that pick. Good value play. Giving you a top 5 here before Joe. I'd love to get or before we get to Joe, audience, you are on the clock. It looks like your first pick is in. Great job, and also a great pick. You'll need one more while we wait for that second pick. Joe, back to you. Is McGreevy going to be in your player pool?
Yeah, certainly. I actually wrote him up in my No Vig Picks article over at Rotoballer this week. I really like the accuracy. I think that's something we see that plays really well at PGA National. He's in the top 20 on tour this year in driving accuracy percentage and greens and regulation percentage. So this is a guy that's just super accurate from tee to green. You're going to avoid a lot of those big numbers that we see around PGA National. So I love Spencer's pick here.
Boom. All right. Spence, good recovery here in round 2. Audience, great job getting your picks in. You got Hong Kong Lee and John Kiefer locked. I think that's a great turn for Team Audience. I'm a little bit worried. Team Audience might get another win this week, off to a really hot start. I really like both those picks. But Spencer, we'll go to you here. I know you have been on John Kiefer much of early this season. Will you be playing both Kiefer and Hong Kong Lee this week?
Yeah, Kiefer. Well, at least as far as Kiefer goes, I don't know what I'm going to do with Haotong right now. I'd like to see where the ownership comes in. My next pick was going to be John Kiefer. It's for all the reasons that I've talked about, what feels like on every single show, where he continues to pop for me. Every iteration of every single model that I've put out. And I mean, I don't know if anybody saw in my model before we scrolled to the middle of the pack with Brooks Koepka there. I have John Kiefer as a top 10 pick in this tournament. I think the 7,800 price tag is far too cheap for him, and the statistical profile is really, really nice for him. Like, if you just want to keep, and we've talked about ball striking a lot, his ball striking checks so many of the boxes of what you want to see. So I think Kiefer was going to be my next pick and is probably one of the better values on the board.
Boom. All right. Kiefer off the board. You can't take him, Spence. You have Koepka and McGreevy. Where are you going with your third?
I am going to go. I kind of have a feeling that whatever way I go right now, I'm probably going to be leaving a lot of salary on the table. I guess we'll see if that ends up coming to fruition with it. It's funny because we had such a large conversation in this chat last week about Ryan Fox, who's not in the tournament. But my favorite play was Ryan Fox over Rico Hoey. And I was a big fade of Rico Hoey, and the play ended up winning, and it was a successful bet that was placed. I think this is a really nice spot to go to Rico Hoey after last week of him underachieving. And we talk about ball striking. He is the number 1 projected ball striker in my model. He's inside of the top 10 for me at weighted comp courses. what this is going to come down to, which is what it always comes down to for Rico Hoey, is can he make enough putts to keep himself into contention? If the answer is no, then we could run into some problems if he finds water. I'm going to trust the proximity numbers. I'm going to trust some of these driving statistics. He's number 1 for me in expected driving. He's number 3 in overall proximity. You look at that weighted putting, he's 117th in this field out of 120 players. So it's very near the bottom of it, but I really like Rico Hoey's ball striking. And I mean, I know Ian gave a very big push on him a couple weeks ago of why he was playing him. I'm not going to be as impassioned as Ian was with that speech with it, but I do agree with them. Rico Hoey is probably going to win on tour before too long. This is a very nice spot for him if he's going to get himself across the finish line.
I'm going to say this. This just sounds like a clip that we're going to play on Sunday night of like, see, we told you Rico Hoey after he wins. And you're right. I mean, it typically happens on one of those weeks where, he was hot end of last year. He cooled off. Some people stopped talking about him. And then he comes out of nowhere in a weaker field and takes down the tournament. So that narrative, the way that kind of works out, that just makes sense to me. Everyone loved Rico Hoey 3 months ago. Not that much has changed in 3 months. I think that's a really solid pick there. Joe, would love to get your take. Are you on Rico Hoey this week?
I'm on the fence. Spencer could maybe talk me into it, and he went a long way towards it there. Hoey's a guy, man. He was feeding families during the fall swing. I mean, I was just laying him in lineups every single week because the ball striking was so good, and it looked like he'd finally found something with the putter. I think he made the switch to a long putter in the fall, and we saw him really click on and reel off some nice finishes. But things have kind of been hit and miss so far this year. The putter's not working as well, and the ball striking's not been as good. But that's also probably a reflection of playing tougher golf courses against tougher competition. Something that we're going to see be a little bit easier for him this week. So I think it's very, very reasonable to have Hoey in your player pool, in this type of field this week with his ball striking. If it starts clicking, there's a lot of upside there.
Oh, all right. Well, Joe, you got Shane Lowry and Will Zalatoris. Solid start. Where are you going with your third pick?
I'm just going to kind of try to stay on that solid path and go with Alex Smalley. A guy that I, roster often in GPPs just because I feel like that upside's there when he does get things going. He's a little bit volatile, can be inconsistent, kind of randomly put some stinkers out there, but we can also see him kind of light things up when he gets it going. I think his ball striking will play well here. Well, you had a T18 in this event last year. And we saw some pretty nice starts from him in 2026. So I like how he fits into my lineup.
All right. There you have it. Alex Smalley, I think he's one of the better value plays. You get Alex Smalley 8,300. I like his recent form. His ball striking has really been on point. He's coming around recently. I'm endorsing that pick. He'll definitely be in my player pool. Spencer, what's your take on Alex Smalley this week? Spencer, you're on mute.
Selection. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you got confused because I unmuted you and then you hit it too at the same time. So we're good now. Go ahead.
No, what I was saying is I was considering Rico Hoey or Alex Smalley for my pick. Smalley is one of the first outrights that I punched a ticket on this week. He is in the top 10 of pretty much every iteration of my model when it comes to upside. And you're always going to have some of that volatility with him. You even see it from the course. The top 20 last year, the missed cut the year before. It's always this like boom or bust narrative with him where like the boom doesn't necessarily get as high as sometimes you want it to be. But I think this is about as good of a venue as you can possibly get if you're trying to put the pieces together for why Alex Smalley can win. He's inside. I ran 7 statistical categories this week. He's inside of the top 10 4 of them.
So yeah, there you have it. Well, what's interesting about this week is it's not that surprising that Alex Smalley's in the top 10. Whereas obviously in other tournaments it would be, and especially because the price is down. But this week, and the field that he's in, like that doesn't shock me. And that's the point. Is like there's some guys that might be the 10th, 12th, 15th golfer in the field that you normally would like. This guy's usually like 40th, but that's the week that we're in. So, I take that with a grain of salt a little bit as you are considering some of these more mid-tier guys, because this week a mid-tier guy is a B plus upper echelon. All right, I got two, and the guy who I didn't mention on my last round actually did get back to me. It's going to make my roster construction interesting, but I'm going to first take Michael Thorbjornsen. He's another guy who's definitely not in that top tier, but he's just right below. And I think what happened here is, if you remember, he was just red hot just a couple of weeks ago. Didn't have the best result at Pebble. And then people maybe just got turned off by him. Pebble probably was never going to be the best course fit for him to begin with. The way he's a bomber, he's going to hit it long. The setup probably wasn't for him. If you just kind of remove that, I think if Pebble never happened, if he didn't play there, and you just look at his recent form from 18th at the Farmers, 3rd at the Phoenix Open, at the Waste Management, he probably would have been right up in that upper echelon tier. But that bad week at Pebble, I think, has put a little bit of a bad taste in people's mouths. I think he comes back here and he can rebound. And from what we've seen in his game, there's a lot to like. I mean, he can get birdies in bunches, so it's going to play easier. That should suit him. His driver has been fantastic. And really the big question mark is he going to be able to roll in some putts? Because if he can go in this week and find a putter and make some putts, I mean, he can go as far as compete and win the whole thing pretty easily. So at 9,200, what's interesting about him is there's clearly 3 or 4 guys ahead of him that people are going to prefer, which should keep his ownership in check just a bit. So you even get a low-owned guy who can come out and win the tournament. I think there's a lot to like about Thorbjornsen this week, and I'm glad that he kind of fell to me. But what's interesting is it's forcing me into what we would traditionally call a stars and scrubs approach, because now I have 3 guys in the 9K, so I'm going to have to get value from here. So with that being said, I'm going to take – I'm looking at it because I know what guys I want. I just want to – I'm going to take Lee Hodges here with my next pick. I need to get value. I need to get a salary saver. Lee Hodges is a guy who I wouldn't say he's in the best form for Lee Hodges that we've seen, but we know the upside's there. We know he's a guy who's capable of getting really hot, and the proximities. He's going to be one of the best in the field at these longer irons that you're going to need here. He's got great long iron play. The really only concern is that he just hasn't looked great the last couple of times we saw him. But that's not almost a month ago. So maybe he's gotten his form right. I mean, if you go look back to mid-January, he gave you a top 10 at the Sony Open. So we know the upside's there. And in his weaker field, I think that should suit him really well, right? Now all those big guys are gone. He can show up and be one of the better ball strikers in the field. So we'll go to you here, Joe. Is Lee Hodges or Michael Thorbjornsen on your radar?
I think Thorbjornsen, we know he's a rising star. I really like your thought process there, Joel. I mean, we've seen him pop. These young guys can often be inconsistent, but that doesn't mean you get off of them, especially in GPPs. So I kind of like the thought process of just going back to Thor here. And Lee Hodges, I believe we've got, some nice course history, maybe over the recent form there. But, in this type of field, I don't mind at that price taking a stab at it. A guy that's performed well on this golf course. So I like both those picks.
Boom. All right. I love it. All right, Joe, you got Smalley with your last pick. You got about 7,800 per pick to go. Where are you going with your fourth?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different things you can do. I think you could I really feel like people aren't going to go in play much in the 6K range this week. And that's with reason. There's some nasty stuff down there. But I think in GPPs, it's a really interesting, strategy to dip down into the 6Ks, because I just don't think a lot of people are going to go there. But that being said, for kind of the way the draft has worked out for me here, I'm going to kind of stay solid, maybe a little bit off the board with mid-tier pricing, but I'm going to go Jordan Smith at 7,800. Player coming over from the DP World Tour, who I think is really talented. American fans maybe aren't too familiar with him yet, so I think we can maybe get some ownership leverage there at a pretty nice price tag at 7,800. We've seen some good finishes from him this year. just working his way onto the PGA Tour from the DP World Tour, but he was a top 10 machine over there last year. So I like how his game fits with this golf course.
Jordan Smith off the board. And Jordan Smith, now he's finally coming over to the PGA Tour, but he's been in a few tournaments in the past. He usually plays, especially when they played some of those European tournaments, the Open, and he usually does pretty well. He's definitely been mentioned and brought up, so now we're seeing him more regularly. I like that pick, Spence. I'd love to hear from you. Is Jordan Smith on your radar this week?
Markets really like him. I don't have a ton of data on him. He's like another one of those players, like kind of like what I said with Brooks, where there's just not a ton of stats that I'm pulling in from him. I think for me, the big difference between those two is you save $1,200 one way and you probably get about 10% less ownership on Jordan Smith than you would on Koepka. The other thing I just really quickly want to add about your pick, Joel, with the Thorbjornsen, and I think Lee Hodges is kind of that like prototypical boom or bust sort of play, but you're getting him at sub 5% ownership, or at least sub 6% ownership, somewhere in that range. This kind of reminds me of the spot where you took Akshay Bhatia a couple weeks ago. And I understand in that particular lineup, you ended up being 1 week too early on it. And then Akshay did nothing but go off every single week after that for the most part. I think that profile from Lee Hodges for this event makes a lot of sense. And then the thing with Thorbjornsen that I just wanted to add, I was a massive fade on Thorbjornsen at Pebble Beach. I had him 43rd in my model and 58th from a statistical standpoint. There was 70 players in that tournament, give or take 70, 80 players. Like he was near the bottom of that board. I took Jake Knapp against him in a matchup that ended up winning by like 29 strokes or something. It was some outlandish number. And I think that everybody needs to realize for one second, this is still an elite golfer that all of a sudden now jumps back into a top 15 play within my model. And I don't think last week's course, or the Pebble Beach course, I should say, was ever the best course fit for him. So I'd like to see where ownership lands. I still think he's a little bit volatile for this sort of a thing, but like, I like the Thorbjornsen play. I could see that very easily being, including Lee Hodges, as like one of those lineups when you look back on Sunday. I know we keep trying to look back on Sunday, Joel, you and I trying to figure out where all the money's going to go. But I think as DFS gamers or bettors, you're always kind of trying to figure out what is the optimal path forward. I think that those two names make a lot of sense.
Boom. I love the endorsement. Now I'm feeling good about myself. Spence, you got money to spend at $8,400 about per pick. McGreevy and Hoey, your last two. Where are you going from here?
I take this guy quite a bit. I'm going to take Mac Meisner at $8,000. 11 consecutive made cuts. I know you look at the course history and you see a miscut in a 53rd, and I think that's why the ownership has been a little bit suppressed. You also don't necessarily get anything better than like an 18th place finish. If you look over the last 10 weeks, it's a bunch of middle of the pack finishes, but this is one of those spots with Meisner to where in the fall, my model absolutely loved him over and over again. And he's kind of regressed statistically in a lot of the forms and fashions of how I've built my model. And now all of a sudden for this week, we see him jump back into the top 15 of my model again. I will get to it at the end of the show. Mac Meisner is going to be my best bet. We'll talk about what it is later in the show, but you know, I have a lot of ball strikers in this lineup, along with Brooks Koepka, whatever he is at this point. I think that this is a really nice lineup, and like all these names, it just comes down to their ability to do one or two things at a little bit better of a rate than they have historically. And I think if you look at Meisner, like 50th in my model in expected putting, but if you look at Bermuda greens only, he jumps into the top 30. So I do believe that these Bermuda splits, and I think it was Joe that mentioned it at the beginning part of the show. There are a lot of golfers that got wrecked on POA over and over again. And I think now when you can switch some of these names to Bermuda, there's one name that I'm probably not going to pick, which I'll mention him at the end of the show. I don't want to influence action, but like there's one particular name in the $7,000 section that might see the biggest increase of that. So drop into the chat if you want to hear who that name is. I'll drop it at the end, but I'm going to take Mac Meisner here.
Mac Meisner off the board. You know, in the models that you make, you know, he actually scored really well in mine this week when I made one. I still don't have that much exposure to him, but maybe I'm missing something, as Spence got him here with his fourth pick at 8K. Audience, you're up next. I see some nominations in already. Let's get a few more to get those 2 picks finalized. While we wait for those final picks, Joe, are you interested in Mac Meisner?
Yeah, I like Mac Meisner. I think he's I think Spencer's kind of in a nice groove there. He's a really similar player to Rico Hoey, in that I used him a ton during the fall season. We saw him play really well, put up some really strong finishes. The ball striking's fabulous. It's what we look for, and it's going to play well this week. The results have just softened up a little bit since he's faced tougher competition. But in this type of watered down field, as we said with Hoey, I think he's a guy that you can go back to. This has got a lot of similarities with a fall swing type event. So I like where Spencer's head is at. He's focusing on ball striking, and Meisner's a great one.
Boom. All right. Meisner endorsed. Team audience, it looks like you got Perry. That's your first pick. The second pick, you still need more nominations. Not enough nominations in. We'll go to you. No, it looks like it is. Keith Mitchell finalized. So they're going with Perry and Mitchell. I think that's a pretty solid turn. I really like the audience's draft here. I think the audience is off to a hot start. I'm concerned they could get another win. Spence, let's go to you. Will Keith Mitchell or Perry be in your player pool? Is it John Perry? Is that his first name?
Yeah, I think John Perry is this week's Ryan Fox.
Okay.
This is another direct steal from the audience. This is I don't know what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to try to figure out how I'm going to build out the lineup. I was going to leave an egregious amount of money on the table, and John Perry was going to be one of those names that was going to be the next selection for me. So, not thrilled with Perry being gone.
Wow. So a steal for team audience, a really solid round with the steal. Great job, team audience. I'll give Spencer a minute to gather himself, and we'll go to Joe. Joe, are you interested in both John Perry and Keith Mitchell this week?
Yeah, Keith Mitchell. We've got the course history at Honda. He's played well here, won here, and we know kind of his history on Bermuda greens and bent greens. Anytime you get him off POA, he gets dangerous. So I like Keith Mitchell a lot. Perry's a guy coming over from the DP World Tour. He's a veteran. He's been around the block. He's making cuts on the PGA Tour. Putting forth solid finishes this year. So he's just kind of your typical fairways and greens guy. So that's going to play well at PGA National. So the audience is going to be tough to beat this week.
Audience has been on fire this year, off to a hot start. Team audience, great job. Spence, your time is up. Your pick was stolen, but you still got about 8,600 to spend. Plenty of money left. Where are you going with your fifth pick?
I will take Douglas Gim. More ball striking, more people that cannot make a cut or make a putt. Hopefully he can make a cut. That would not be good for my lineup if you can't do that. But look, I don't know. Like I said, this is going to be a spot. Like even if you look at my build right now, I have 9,800 left over. This is a position where I really would like to be able to get up to Ryan Gerard, Rasmus Højgaard, Nikolai Højgaard. I would take Keith Mitchell. I would take Thor Bjornsson. All those names are gone. And I think that's what makes this really challenging, even when we try to get unique in builds, because there's a lot of names beneath there. The Aaron Rise, which I like. Aaron Rise, fine. Berger's fine. I'm not playing Daniel Berger. You could not pay me enough money to take Daniel Berger. Like anybody who's inside of our Discord at this point, I had him in a matchup, 2 weeks ago against Marco Penge, and Daniel Berger shot like 20 over par. Like it's every single week with Daniel Berger. It never goes right one time that I take him. He's just X'd out permanently until something changes at this point. So
do you feel anything, the fact that this is his home course where he grew up?
I mean, no, not yes, but no. I mean, like you're not going to talk me into it. Like I'll tell you this, Joel, my model has him 14th overall. My model, like that's as low as you're going to get from him. I usually have him inside like the top 10 or the 12 range. If you look at that, it's obviously a fine price tag. I don't know. I just can't with him for the time being.
I actually agree. I know that this is his home course. I know this is where his parents live. His dad is the tennis pro right across the street from PGA National. but I still can't get to him this weekend. I love Daniel Berger. It's been so far from seeing a good result. Maybe this is the week he needs to get right. That's possible, but it's just hard to make that click right now when we just haven't seen it in so long. Seeing that really good play, that really strong play. So right now I'm off of him too, but you never know, Joe. How about you? Will you play Berger at all this week?
It's a tough one, man. I think, the guy's not going to play bad forever. It's certainly a breakout spot, potential breakout spot for him. A golf course that he's so familiar with and has played so well at in the past. I mean, he's, I'm sure if you asked Daniel Berger 8 or 10 years ago, this would be an event he circled as one he would win in his career. Of course, a lot of injuries and stuff since then, but I think he's going to be one of those players, we talked about getting him off POA is really going to help. That the putting's just been really, really bad. We saw some positives in the ball striking last week at Riv, but the putter continued to just be ice cold. I think he'll see some positive regression by getting off POA. So it's an ownership play for me. I'm not sure, if he's somewhere around like 15%, I'm probably not super interested. But if he's like sub 10, then I'd give him a look.
Yeah, I think that certainly makes sense. Well, he is available for you here with your 5th pick. You got about 70, 100 per pick left. What direction you heading?
Yeah, I think you could go kind of keep it middle of the road and stay in the 7s, but this type of tournament, I'd rather take a swing. I'm going to take Aaron Rye here. Just the ball striking is really good. Fairways and greens, I think that's, any time that he's not on a super long golf course, I'm kind of interested. We saw him play really well last year. He won an international event back in the fall. So I think he's had a bad final round last week, but played really well at Riv overall. So I like how, I know the course history is not there, but on paper, this should be a good fit for Aaron Rye. So I'll take a swing with him here.
Boom. Aaron Rye off the board. And I agree. I mean, he just seems like at this point in the draft, he's the top talent available. He's still under 9K. I think that pick certainly makes a lot of sense, especially where you are in this position. Spence, we'd love to hear from you on your take on Aaron Rye this week at PGA National.
I think what Joe said makes a lot of sense. I mean, I don't want to be a broken record with this Brooks Koepka take. I'm lamenting about my pick 6 rounds after the Brooks Koepka pick has been made, but it's all those names in that mix, whether it's him, even Rasmus, Niergaard, Peterson. I think I'd rather have almost any of those names in that section. Rye fits in for all those reasons that Joe mentioned. I don't know if I'm going to get to him this week or not inside of my player pool, but I don't have a counter argument against him because there's a lot to like about the profile. He is a top 30 play for me this week. When it just comes to overall playability, I think it just comes down to price tag, ownership, where you're trying to maneuver, what you're trying to do with a build. Top 20 ball striker though in my model. And I mean that and how good he is on Bermuda, you can't take those two things away from him.
You like him better than Berger, Spencer?
Probably. I mean, I'm going to give that answer, Joe, even if it's not what my model says.
I think Rye's ownership will be lower, right? Than Berger. They're going to be pretty similar.
Yeah, I think it'll be lower. You're probably going to be about 5% lower at when all is said and done. I would think
lower ownership. I think I prefer Rye there.
Yeah, I would agree.
Oh, all right. Well, there you have it. Aaron Rye off the board. For my last 2 picks, I'm going to lock in my first one, which is going to be Billy Horschel. And Billy Horschel is a guy who, if you click in a little closer, he's playing a little bit better as of recent. He's got a really good course history here. So, at the one, if you like course history, it's the guy that likes to come back to Florida. He usually plays better when he kind of gets to the Florida swing. And then if you dig a little deeper, I mean, he's starting to play better golf. I mean, we haven't seen the best Billy Horschel in a minute, but he had 3 rounds under 70 at Pebble Beach. He only got T48. He had a 72 in round 2. But he consistently was under 70. He's playing some pretty decent golf. Even at the American Express, he gave you a top 30. He shot a 64 and a 66 in 2 of those rounds. So the good golf is there for him. Get him back to a course we know he's played well at before. He likes in a pretty weak field. I think there's some upside here this week with Billy Horschel. And then I was really torn on the second pick here that I was going to finish off my squad with. And there was a few guys that I was kind of mulling over, guys that I usually take. You've heard me mention before, guys like, potentially a Sam Ryder, who is a good courser here. But that's not who I'm taking. Gim is now off the board, but Doug Gim was someone I was looking at, Kevin Yu. But who I'm going to settle on is Nico Echeverria. Great ball striker. He's a guy who's given us some really good finishes, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for upside. 2 years ago, he gave you a top 25, 21st here at this course. But in the last 10 tournaments that he's played, he's given you 3 top 10s and a top 20. If you look at this feels like a field he can easily get you in the top 10 or 15. He can strike the ball really well. He gets hot with those irons and makes a few putts. It feels like another week you can get a really good result from Echeverria. Excuse me. So I'd like to hear from you on this round. Spence, are you interested in either Billy or Echeverria this week?
I don't know if I can get myself to go down the Billy route. The course history is so good. It's just, this is not a very predictive course. At the end of the day, though, like, Billy is Mr. Florida and Mr. Florida Golf. I like the Echeverria call out. Can I ask you a question really fast?
Sure.
Did you consider at all, and I'm not saying that they're like vastly different from one another, did you consider at all Tom Kim?
Yes, he was right in that mix of guys I was looking at. Especially because if you look closely, Tom Kim's ball striking is starting to peak again, right? He's gained over 3 strokes on approach each of the last 2 weeks.
So I'm going to give this spiel. I'll do it in 35 seconds, and I won't do it at the end of the show. The name I was going to talk about was Tom Kim. You look at the ball striking of what he's put together the last couple weeks. It is phenomenal. He cannot make a putt. There are reasons to believe that you move him over to Bermuda and off of POA, that there might be a lot more upside that's in that profile from what we've seen. That putter last week, if you just give him a neutral putter, I really think he comes like top 10, 15 in that tournament, and we have a completely different narrative entering this event. I like Tom Kim a lot. To be honest, Joe can't take Tom Kim at this point. I'm considering taking Tom Kim and just leaving a bunch of money. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but it's one of 2 options that's being considered right now.
Interesting. Well, I will say what my deciding factor that Tom Kim wasn't my consideration, but the deciding factor that pushed me was the odds. Nico had better odds to win, which has kind of put me over the edge. But if you're looking in that range, it goes Nico, Tom Kim, and then there's a big drop off. So those are the kind of 2 that are certainly leading the pack in that range. Joe, would love to get your take on both Billy and Echeverria, and then you're up with your final pick.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Spencer on Billy. I just, I get the narratives and I get the course history and the Florida connections and all that. I've never been a big Billy, never been a big guy to roster Billy, but I definitely get it in this event. And I think he's working his way back, and this is kind of like Berger. Billy's not going to play bad forever. We're going to see some good results eventually, and this is makes sense as a breakout spot for him. As far as Nico, I always love the upside. I feel like he's a really erratic player. A lot of missed cuts in there, but when he does play well, it seems like there's like top 10 upside, like tournament winning upside in this kind of event. It wouldn't be a big stretch to see him in contention come the weekend. So I can get behind Nico at that price point.
Oh, all right. There you have it. Joe, you got about 6,800 total left. How you rounding out your squad?
And I want Tom Kim now. Spencer talked me into it. No, I'm gonna take my boy Blades Brown.
Ooh.
It's my dark horse this week. Tennessee boy, trying to work his way on the PGA Tour. This kid's 18 years old, guys, and I cannot tell you how talented he is. I think it's been about 4 years ago. He won the Tennessee State High School Championship, I believe, in 8th grade, and he went on to win it 2 more times. He won it 3 times in total. The Tennessee State High School Golf Championship. He's he shot a 63 in the U.S. Amateur a couple years ago in the stroke play portion of the U.S. Am. So he flirted with a 59, I think, at Amex earlier this year. So this kid can just go super low on any golf course, and at 6,800, I just love his potential.
Boom. Pick is definitely endorsed by Brian England, known Tennessee Vols fan in the chat.
Brian probably knows some Blades Brown.
I would assume so as well. And it looks like the chat generally likes the pick. An up-and-comer rising star. I like it too. I think it's a fun upside pick. Again, same thing I was saying before, especially in this type of field where it's watered down. A guy like him where his talent can shine, and he can even probably afford to have one off day and still give you a pretty good result here.
Yeah, man. I'm just I think this is a week, especially, I'm not putting any money into cash. It's just all GPP tournament plays. We're looking for upside. So embrace the volatility. A guy that can go out there and get you, a 62, that can get you a long way in a tournament like this. So, sub 7K, I don't think a lot of people are going to be down there. Just really like a lot of things about him this week.
I don't want to put anybody on the spot here. Joe, I don't know if you've run a model for this tournament at this point.
Yeah, I've run some preliminary stuff, for matchup, Spencer.
So, question to both of you guys. Where do you have Blades Brown in your model?
I've got I don't really have a 1 through the bottom model, but I've got him as he's one of my favorite first round leader bets. Got him as kind of a core value DPP or GPP play this week.
He came in at 53 on mine. Again, I don't overweight my model. I just kind of use it, just kind of get some structure. There's guys that are ahead of him that I actually would probably take Blades Brown over, but 53 is the number he landed on.
I mean, for what it's worth, 53 is a value for what the price tag is. I mean, you're even higher than market, and you can get it even probably higher than that. I have him 30th overall. I asked the question because that seems like a very aggressive return. And I know, Joel, you and I, maybe more so than most people, I think we love the players that we believe in, and we are willing to back them before the public consensus and narrative comes into play. And we did it with Oberg. We've done it with Tom Kim in the past. I understand Tom Kim has gone in the wrong direction recently, but there are golfers who are better than what they appear to be on paper. And for Blades Brown, he is an 18-year-old kid that has immense upside that is through the roof. And it would not shock me to see him at an event like this actually catapult himself way up the leaderboard and have a real chance to either win or, like Joe said, this is the ideal sort of a first-round leader bet that you want to take because the ceiling is very high on him if he puts the pieces together. So I like the pick. I think it's a very, very sound pick.
It's one of those things where if Blades Brown, he doesn't even have to win, but if he's like at the top of the leaderboard, maybe in the lead after day 2, ends up finishing top 10 or 5, it's one of those things where just because his name will be on the board so much, people we talk about him, looking at him, from now on, he then ends up being like, we have another watered down tournament. He's going to be 8,800, 9K, or now he's going to be the next upside. Remember Luke Clanton? There was like 10 weeks in a row. He was like in the 8, 9K range because he had a couple good weeks early on in that year. So, Blades Brown, he's the profile of a high upside superstar to be. It takes one big week like this one to kind of just get him into that conversation and leave him there. So this certainly does seem like a tournament that could be the case. So we shall see. Spence, basically take anyone you want with your last pick. Anyone who's not taken, that is. Where are you going from here?
Luke Clanton, very quickly, not my pick, but this is also his home course, I believe. So
good call.
You might have some reasons to believe he is a very high upside climber in my model. I think he might be popular because of that home course narrative. So that would at least be something that I would look into. There's a handful of guys that I think I could consider here. I could go towards more near the top of the board and take Erasmus Niergaard Peterson. I think Thorbjorn Olesen makes some sense. I actually really like Carl Phillips at 6,800 if we're going to go way low on it. I am going to leave a bunch of money. I talked about Tom Kim initially. I'm not going to take him. I will say this. I have a Tom Kim matchup against Matt Wallace that I got at minus 110. I do really like that number. Instead, I am going to go with Sami Välimäki at 7,600. So I'm still leaving a ton of money on the table. I don't need to do this with my lineup. I'm already unique and different enough by not going to the big three names of the board. But look, I mean, I'm just going to take what I think is the best at this tournament right now and what my model has a little bit higher than consensus. We know water and volatility is always the great equalizer. Välimäki has been very safe the last couple weeks. Get me a made cut. Hopefully Koepka gets through the weekend, and I kind of like my lineup more than what it looks like, at least to start.
I'm a big fan of the Välimäki pick, 7,600. I think he possesses a lot of upside. We've seen some really good results from him recently. The ball striking has looked really strong. I think that's a solid upside pick in the 7K range. Someone I will definitely be playing myself this week. Audience, get those final nominations in to round out your squad. You got 7,900 left to finalize that last pick. While we wait, let's go to you, Joe. Is Välimäki on your player pool?
Yeah, for sure. I was actually, whatever it was, like 5 or 6 picks ago, before I took Aaron Rye, I was seriously considering taking Välimäki there and just kind of going solid. So he's certainly in my player pool this week. I love him as a kind of mid 7K option.
Oh, all right. Well, pick endorsed. Team audience moving a little bit slow. We are running low on time. Courtney as team captain, and the mentioning of Tom Kim. I don't think Tom Kim should go undrafted. I think we put him on team audience. Watch him win the tournament. Audience get their
audience just going to beat us to death with Tom Kim.
Win or whatever it is already. Team audience with a great draft. But that's a wrap for tonight. Let us know who you think's going to win. Take a look at these teams. Make your prediction of who's going to win. Of course, we will track the results. Come back next week, crown a king, and do it all over again. We haven't done this in a couple weeks, but I want to do this section because there's a guy that I just want to get mentioned on the show because I have a sneaking suspicion he could go out and even win this tournament. I really like Mackenzie Hughes this week. By the time I got my big three, I couldn't afford him really anymore, so I didn't get there. But I really like Mackenzie Hughes. I think he's a guy we know has a good short game. His ball striking has been coming along, and if he strikes the ball well again this week and the way he can make putts, I think Mackenzie Hughes can be sneaky. But we'll go to you guys. We'll start with you, Joe. Is there anyone else you're surprised did not get taken in this draft?
Berger.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Just with the name recognition and the course history, I figured Berger would have went off the board this week. So I guess that's probably the big surprise for me.
Yeah, I would agree. That's a pretty big one. How about you, Spence?
Do you guys have thoughts on Chris Kirk? I've kind of gone back and forth on him. The course history looks great. The current form is bad, but if you actually dive into the current form, he's missing every single cut pretty much on the number. Like, the statistical profile is much better. Granted, he's not popping on any given event. Like, he's kind of flat across the board, but there's been a lot of ways I've tried to consider to convince myself where to bet Chris Kirk, but I don't know. He's kind of the name for me that I kind of want to have exposure to because of his upside.
Kirk's interesting. He's a guy that I seem to always get wrong. Whenever I want to play him, he doesn't do well, and then he'll pop on a week that I'm not considering him. I'm not considering him this week, which means it could be a week he goes out and pops. So I do think it's interesting, especially with that course history. He does tend to play well here, and it does seem to be like these watered-down events where he shows up and pops and gets you a good result. So I think that's an interesting one as well. All right, before we get everyone out of here, we will give you our favorite bets of the week. Spence, we'll start with you tonight. Is there a bet you are loving this week?
There's one that I like the most. I mean, I'll throw it into your corner right now, Joel. You do not have to accept this wager. I'm just going to mention it just because the name just got brought up by you a second ago. I like Mac Meisner. I got it at minus 111. It was in the 120s for a while. It's now a little bit higher than that. I'm going to be fully transparent on you where that line's gone. A lot of that is our Discord pushing it up, but against Mackenzie Hughes this week. So Mac Meisner over Mackenzie Hughes would be my play.
I'm definitely the underdog, right? It wouldn't be a smart bet for me to make at a sports book, but I'll take it. I like Hughes a lot this week. I'll take it.
Are we putting something on the line for this?
We'll do a 1 round punishment spin for next week.
Perfect.
All right, deal. Lock it in. I got Hughes. You got Miser.
Okay.
Oh, for me, I'm not going to give you one bet. I'm going to give you a general bet direction. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, there's like a big 3 that everyone's kind of playing this week. Everyone likes. I think the way I want to attack this week is all 3 of them. If you, wait, let me pull up the wrong page. All 3 of them, if you look at the odds, you can get plus money in the top 20 market. That's where I want. Like, they don't have to win. Just give me Lowry, give me Højgaard, give me Gerard top 20. I think these guys, I can't see them missing the cut, falling off. I think you get good results from all of those big 3 guys. I'm going to be playing the top 20 market. I think, especially the upper echelon of this tournament, I think those guys get you a good result. Top 20 is safe, and you're getting plus money. So you're still, making out on it. I think those are a really good way to go after this tournament. So for me, it's Lowry, Højgaard, and Gerard in the top 20. And I'll give you the exact numbers for each. Gerard's plus 115, Lowry's plus 120, and Nikolai's plus 150. That's a wrap. It was a little bit long show tonight, but there's a lot of material. I think you can go out. I think there's an edge to be had this week. I think you can make some money. I'm excited for DFS purposes, but really big thank you to Joe Nicely coming on, drafting with us. Joe, the only guest to come on and actually beat us, got to work it out for us because right now the audience is informed. They're on an absolute hot streak. Joe, thanks again. And please tell everyone where else they can find you throughout the week.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy it. This is kind of one of those so wild, it's fun weeks on the PGA Tour. We kind of don't know what's going to happen, so unpredictabilities a lot of times is really fun. But you can, as always, catch me over at rotoballer.com with Spencer and with Joel. So come see me there. You can find me on Twitter or X at Joe Nicely. Look forward to talking to you guys again, hopefully sometime this year, and I hope you have a good weekend.
Yeah, and Joe and Spencer, we've said it before, but we'll say it again. Joe and Spencer have really built the dream team for PGA DFS over at Rotoballer. So if you haven't already, make sure you get in there, get an account. You're following all of the content creators for the golf squad over at Rotoballer. You're going to be making more money. Whether you're just betting on the tournament, playing DFS, the team is absolutely killing it. And they've really bulked up the team this year. So you're getting the very best of the best. Now is the time as we start getting into the Florida swing, into major season. Get on board, get on the train, be a part of the Rotoballer team, win with us. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get a big win for Spencer tomorrow. Spence, what did I forget tonight?
Well, first of all, this is what happens when championships start getting built over and over again. There's a dysfunction that ends up coming into play. It looks like I don't know if he's the pick or not the pick, but it's definitely something that is pushing in the direction over Tom Kim right now. So I don't know if we want to allow the audience the ability to figure out where they are for this selection.
Wait a minute, let's look. Hold on. Well, no, I mean, even with what I said, Tom Kim still ended up being the legitimate pick.
There was 2 selections from it.
Courtney said it. That's why I said it, because Courtney said it first, and then the next 2 people later said to him again. So that is who the pick would have been, even if I didn't rush it.
Okay. I just bringing it up. Don't want to have any controversy. Let the audience try to defend their title. They are on fire right now. I don't know, Joel. I mean, like there's been a boycott within the team.
We'll let them take Tom Kim out. If they want to take Tom Kim out, they're welcome to.
I'm fine with it, but for the record, Courtney mentioned Tom Kim at 22-19-50. Looking at the timestamp, and then the second Tom Kim came at 22-21-07. The second Rearton came at 21-21-11. So 4 seconds later.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if it was influenced that way. We'll see. I'm fine with whatever we decide to do. I'm fine letting this go on until tonight, and they can figure it out amongst themselves.
Listen, for the sake of making people upset and having this not end well, let us know what you want. We're not going to change it. We're going to keep it as is, but just say it in the chat so you can come back next week and say, if you just listen to me, we would have won. Just okay, good. Get it, put it out there, and you can blame me all you want. I'll be the bad guy. I don't mind. You can say it was Joel's fault. even though the rules are clearly stated and we just follow them. But sure, you can make it my fault, say what you wanted, but we're not going to change it. You got Tom Kim, and you're actually, honestly, before I start talking smack, the audience is red hot, so you're probably going to win with them anyway. So I'm just going to stop talking smack and leave it at that. Okay, for you guys following along and watching us this late, I apologize for going over, but everyone give a big good luck to Spence tomorrow. Nominated for the FSWA Golf Writer of the Year. I think he should win. All you guys watching know he should win. Wishing you the best of luck. We'll be following along. Hope it's a really good result for you tomorrow.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We will see what the outcome ends up being. But I mean, beyond anything else, I appreciate the support from everybody. I know like Brian gave a very nice message on one of the things, and everybody who's reached out to the post to say something nice. It does mean a lot to me. And, you know, one of the reasons why I'm able to do this in the space is because of everybody who does tune into the show. And, you know, regardless of what happens tomorrow on this, I will be back next week. We will keep firing away. And I just appreciate everybody who does make us a part of their weekly research process.
And I'll even say, if Spencer does win, then Team Audience, you have a claim for being like the best producer because you guys beat us every week, and he's going to be the Golf Writer of the Year. So Team Audience, you guys could be the actual kings here. So in all seriousness, go Spence. Good luck tomorrow. Good luck this week. Have some